This is Jay from Just Build It podcast. I'm here with Nick and Fluidampr, and I'm trying to bring you answers or maybe information that you didn't know to consider or maybe you will consider when it comes to building your ride. All right. So today we're going to talk about maybe things that you probably wouldn't think to buy because you probably don't consider them, and you don't consider them until you have to. And by the time you do consider them, it's probably already too late, and you've gotten yourself into a very monetary hole that will have to recover your gains that you just now lost, and your ride is probably down for several months. So, Nick, why don't you tell us a bit about where you're from, what you do, and the product that you supply?
Okay. My name is Nick. I work at Fluidampr here. I do some of the marketing and technical help. I started out as a tech customer service rep and kind of just worked up. I started doing a lot more of the social and tech, tech and social and marketing things. So I'm kind of like in the middle everywhere. But growing up, I've always been turning wrench, building cars, trucks, and everything. Took that to a professional career and was a diesel mechanic for over 15 years. Had to step out of it due to a surgery and some medical things. So found out Fluidampr was hiring. Didn't even realize they were in our backyard, and so I started with them. Been with them ever since. So there was a lot to learn, a lot of things I didn't even know about. So it's one of those things. I always say it's not a cool part like a turbo or some headers or fancy shiny stuff. And you always had that chrome don't get you home. So there's all those sayings and all those things growing up. But like I had always heard of and used fluid dampers, and then in my professional career as a heavy duty mechanic, we would install Vibertech TVD dampers, which is Fluidampr's parent company. So they're the dampers that are on the heavy duty trucks, your semi trucks, and everything. Damn. I was very familiar with the product and had installed them hundreds of times on heavy duty trucks. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things that just kind of felt right, and so I've been here ever since.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You knew about them prior to joining Fluidampr, but at
Yes.
what point in time, or have they always been a product that was available to a sport compact or domestic car builds that were either at the drag track or strip, or did they find themselves kind of making a pivot to get into that market after you joined them?
No, so Fluidampr has been in existence since 1985.
Congratulations.
The heavy duty line, Vibertech TVD, is actually the original inventor of viscous technology, viscous dampers, and that started in the 1940s. And the company actually started in the early, I think 1919 or something along those lines is when the company actually formed, but the viscous technology and everything started in the 40s.
If you know off the top of your head, when was the Ford Model T in production? Because it sounds like we're almost close to being back there. Like we're talking about 1919. So I mean, when was that?
I don't know offhand when the Model T started, but surprisingly enough, they didn't have dampers. So
Okay, 1927 up to 1927. So they were around while Model Ts were still in the process of being produced. And that's all I want to get to, because that's a very long time for a company to be in existence in our culture. Some car companies and products and aftermarket parts, they come in maybe 10, 15 years, and then somebody else makes something similar, they take over, and then they're not in existence anymore. So congratulations to Fluidampr for being a staple in car development for this long. I just want to give you all that congratulations.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it. The company had made other things like shocks and dampers, not as in a harmonic damper, but like a strut damper and things like that. But that was a different division, and it was sold off. So that was years prior.
Okay.
But like I guess growing up and everything, you kind of thought you knew what a product did, and
Right.
we get a lot of calls and emails and everything. So our biggest thing is education, trying to educate everybody what the product is, what it does, what it's for, and why you need it. And I myself installing, like I said, hundreds of them over the course of my professional career. I guess I never really understood exactly what it was for or what it did. So that was a learning experience myself. So when I got the job, I immediately went to the website, and so I was on all the websites, and I just was trying to consume as much information as possible because it was something that, hey, this is going to be my new career, but I want to know more and more about it. And my goal was to learn everything about it so that somebody like yourself, hey,
Right.
what about this? I can answer that question and be confident about it. So that was just kind of like one of the things I did. And I tell you what, it was a lot to learn. And like I love telling people and explaining it to get more people on the same page because
Right.
it's not what you think it is. And, you hear we obviously have competitors in the market,
Yes.
and they like to spread misinformation about our product, especially.
I've encountered
And
that.
so it's like, okay, now you got to explain it so that, and then they understand. And there's some other, like I'll get into some other things, but like
Right.
we do a bunch of OE level work. So we're the factory damper on a bunch of OE vehicles. If the competitors were so good and their product was so good, wouldn't they be the OE product?
I was just about to say that.
Oh, and a funny thing about viscous dampers is the price point costs a lot more, especially in an OE level. These are not real numbers, but I'm just going to give it an example of a number. So an OE damper, the rubber harmonic damper that you would get on your regular factory vehicle. Yep. So something like what you're holding up there, that would be like maybe $50, we'll say, that the OE will pay for that. A viscous damper is going to be like, say, $250. So
Okay.
at an OE level. So, I mean, those aren't real numbers, but I'm just saying, like,
Just
the
like the price
cost.
gap between the OE
Yeah.
type and the viscous. Got you.
Yeah. So the cost is a lot more. So that's why OEs don't use that technology as much. But we're seeing now that more are switching to that, and they're coming to us. And, there's other manufacturers as well. But they're coming to us because it is a better product. It is better technology. So they see the benefits and the worth to put it right on it from the factory level. So
Okay.
starting it right out of the gate. So you're getting that high quality product, and you're protecting your engine, your investment. And I'm sure you're aware, the engines these days, you're getting like twin turbo 6 cylinders, and
Right.
and so it's higher
High revs.
pressure, and yeah, so higher RPMs. So the things they're doing these days is quite impressive, and you need to be able to back that up with a solid product. So something like ours, it's been proven for years. They see it, and we've had these OE levels, and we're on hypercars, supercars, sports cars, racing applications. So these people come over from overseas and everything. Like, we'll say like Italy. We've had them over, and they're like, okay. And now, so now we're making them for multiple of their engines.
Oh, nice. Okay, so
So
let me
they're,
ask you this. Let me ask you this, Nick, because this is going to be a question that I get, and I try to explain it, but I'm not sure that I myself am even explaining it correctly. So there's a term, okay? People say harmonic dampener or balancer. Are these the same or two different very components? Because to me, I looked at them as they were different. A balancer to me, I just looked at it, okay, rotational force, we're trying to balance that out, get some of the vibration out. But a dampener seemed like to me, it's absorbing something, like it's taking the force of something and kind of converting it over. So I didn't know if I was explaining it properly, but that's the way I explained it. That's as much as I got. So you take it away so they know what the vast difference is between the two, if it even is different.
Oh yeah, so I'm very glad you brought that up, 'cause I was going to actually bring that up point, because that is one of the largest misconceptions of the whole thing. So you nailed the head on that, and you're not wrong, but not 100% right.
Okay.
So the term is used interchanged, like balancer, damper, they get used as referring to the same thing.
Okay.
So older engines were all externally balanced. So the crank had the weights on the outside of the crank side or the damper side and the flywheel or flex plate side. So the damper would play a role as in externally balanced. It would have a counterweight on it. I don't actually have one in here. I wish I. Oh, hold on. Can I step off
Yeah, yeah,
screen
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I'll show you a counterweight to explain this. So the damper. So here, I just these don't go together, but I'm just going to try to explain it. So this is our damper.
All
This
right.
is just a cutaway version of it. So this just shows how it is. This damper has no counterweight. This is an internally balanced damper. This one actually happens to be for a Volkswagen.
All right.
So the purpose of a damper is to absorb torsional vibration. Torsional vibration is the bending and twisting and the rebounding of the crank itself. So
Okay.
as your engine's running, every time you get that power stroke and it forces the piston down, it twists the crank itself. So when that happens, you'll get that flex throughout the crank, and that's torsional vibration. So the damper will remove it. It absorbs the torsional vibration, and then it turns it into a heat, and then it's dissipated out of the damper. Problem with the OE dampers, as the one you were holding up earlier, it has a rubber bonding material in it. So you'll have your mounting point, so that goes on the crank itself. Yep. And then you have your rubber bonding material, and then you'll have your inertia ring on the outside. So that's how those are absorbing the torsional vibration. The way ours works is you'll have your housing and your connection point to the crank, whether it's a flange or a slip fit or a press fit. And our inertia ring is welded inside or it's inside, free floating inside in the damper housing. So
Okay.
this actually moves back and forth, and this will be free floating, and then we pump the silicone inside of here. So there's a small shear gap around here, and this inertia ring free floats in here, and as the engine's running, this moves, and we call it going in and out of phase. But what happens is this absorbs the torsional vibration, and then it's dissipated out of the cover. One of the really great things about our damper is this has the ability to self-tune in real time to the harmonics of the engine. So your engine is set at a natural frequency from the factory. So it's a specific frequency. And the stock damper has the ability to tune about 50 hertz plus or minus to what the natural frequency is. Our damper can self-tune, so no matter what you've done to the engine, say an intake, exhaust, harder spark plugs, a turbo, anything like that, you're
Right.
changing that natural frequency. This has the ability to help tune that out and keep your engine safe, and it'll protect your bearings and everything.
That's
Since we're
cool.
since we went a little astray on what we were talking about earlier, this is the silicone that's in our damper, and this is one of
Bro,
our
that
ways that
that
we'll
thing
take
that
this.
is thick.
So it's 45,000 times thicker than 30 weight motor oil.
The ball
So
hasn't even moved yet.
yeah, so it'll take about 6 minutes for that to drop totally. So
That's crazy.
a very viscous fluid. I used to take to trade shows a little jar of it because everybody wants to touch it and everything. And I say, I promise you, you don't want it. It doesn't come off easy. So then
Right.
they would touch it, and then they'd be, and
Ah,
it's does not wash off with soap and water like you would think.
so
But
let me ask you this, because this to the lack of my knowledge, still doing just a small bit of research, I found my way investing in you all's product. versus some of the competitors' product. And I'm not gonna say names because it's not about downing anybody's product, but it is about letting people know, to me, what is a better product and a better investment, which is Fluidampr. So there were other products out there, and their construction was different, and it came off to me after just looking into it like, that's just an upscale of what I already kind of have. Instead of the fluid, they were using a series of bands. And to me, it almost seemed like, well, then why am I buying that when it seems like I'd run into the same issues, whether it be wear or the band's elasticity failing after some time or whatever the case would be. So is this the case that this dynamic or this concept that you all have, this ball's just moving, far superior, or they're not too much different in wear? Where does the wear factor come in with viscosity fluid versus multiple bands still being used in a dampener?
Okay, so another great point you asked. I just want to step back 1 second for this. So this is a counterweighted version. So a balancer would have a counterweight on it to help balance the rotating assembly. And it would also have the damper on it as well. Modern engines, there's only a very few that are externally balanced, and that would be like Power Stroke and Duramax diesel engines. But like 99% of the rest of the engines that we have on the market today are all internally balanced engines and would just have a damper itself.
Okay.
So now to what you're saying with the wearability of a product. So your stock damper wears out. It goes bad over time. You'll get where the rubber will push out of it. It'll dry rot. It'll crack. Like road debris, salts in the roads if you live in the salt in the rust belt, oils from your engine, say you just spilled something on it, things like that deteriorate the rubber and everything over time. Heat, and then just age. So they'll wear out. So that is a wear item that does need to get replaced. And a lot of times you'll have where the two pieces that are bonded by that rubber that'll actually spin. And so your timing marks, if it has them, could be in a totally different place. And we see that a lot. And a lot of people be like, well, hey, my timing marks aren't lined up. And there's like always, like a super high percentage chance that the damper has slipped. And that's what caused the timing marks not to line up.
Gotcha.
The other aftermarket dampers, there are the style that are almost identical to your OE one, like what you're talking. And they maybe use a little bit better materials, but the same thing. It wears out. It goes bad. The version with the bands or O-ring style, the same thing. Rubber wears out. It goes bad. The thing with rubber is, with that, rubber has a natural durometer, so a hardness and like a weight, I guess we'd call it, to it. As soon as you put heat to it, that starts to change. It starts to wear, flex, get softer. So over time, those go bad. In many race applications, you have to replace that once a year. One of the things we hear is, your competitor gets used in NASCAR. Yeah, that's true, but they rebuild them every single race. And we've been contacted by race teams, and they don't even make a full race, so they have to replace it on the fly. So there's that as well.
Okay.
Our damper, it never wears out. It never needs to be rebuilt. There's no maintenance, no tuning. Excuse me. So basically it's a one and done item. Okay. The only way to ruin the damper is if, say, you drop it and it gets like a flat spot where this can't free float inside.
Got you.
Or say it's in a 300-degree fire. The silicone is stable from 300 to -40, so it will not change any properties. It won't go any, like this ball would not go any faster
or
if
any
it was
slower. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Or if it's a press fit style damper like this, so if it lost the press fit from repeated on and off, then you would have to replace that. But otherwise, it's basically you buy it, you put it on, and you forget it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, it's been a year or 3 years and I need to send it in and have it rebuilt or anything like that. It
Right.
doesn't need to get recertified. These are all SFI certified. So when you go to the racetrack or anything and they
Oh,
ask you for, hey, do you have that safety? It's
right. So we're
set.
talking about this thing's not coming apart 10, 12,000 RPM spinning.
Right.
Got you.
So SFI certified is 12,500 RPM
Okay.
for 1 hour of just up and
Just
down
straight
drifting.
banging it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They abuse it
Way more,
for at
way
least.
longer than a quarter mile. I got
Yeah,
you. I
exactly.
got
Yep.
you.
So like we had, we were actually just talking about this the other day. We've seen videos where the damper flies off, and there was a video a couple of years ago, and I'm not exactly sure where it was, what racetrack it was at, but it was donk racing,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what donk
Yeah,
racing is.
definitely. Big wheel, small tires
Yes,
down the track.
exactly. Yep. Well, he was doing a burnout, and I think it was like a Monte Carlo or like a Cutlass style, and he was like, heating up the tires, and it came off, went down, hit the ground, and hit a guy and leveled him.
Oh,
He knocked him right out, and you can look the video up online. As
I
we were
will
talking
be.
about it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, here's the video, and that guy got pretty badly injured, and that's a safety item, and but that's not the only time we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like happened to be the worst one because a person
Because it
was
involves
injured
somebody
as
being
well.
injured. Right.
Yeah, we've seen them roll down the racetrack and things like that. So with our product, it doesn't happen. It's not going to come apart or come off.
Okay.
It's a one piece design, so there's no bonding material holding it together. It's steel with fasteners, and that's what holds it together.
Got you. Okay, so let me pose something else to you. This is I'll call it a concern, or maybe you know what? I'll call it a rebuttal. I'll call this a rebuttal that I received after telling somebody why I got a fluid dampener. And I myself even had to tell them that I have the same, what you just described to me, I've also done. Somebody asked me to say, why would I need that? I got a blueprinted engine, B series engine, my crank is balanced and knifed. I don't need an external harmonic balancer upgrade. And I told them that you can, even though you knife that crank, there's no way that you get away from rotational forces. You just don't get away from it. There's no way you're getting away from that. So yeah, maybe you minimize it or maybe you streamline some of it a bit, but still and you correct me and please add to this. This dampener is by far outside of its character with what you've done to this engine now. It doesn't, to me, have the credentials to hold that. So answer or maybe speak to that so people can understand why, even if you do these said steps, you're still better off with the fluid dampener.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So that's another great point. So we get this a lot with Subaru guys, and I'm not exactly sure why. It's mainly them, but it always that boxer engine,
That
man.
boxer.
I swear, and I had a guy at a show like straight up argue with me on this topic. So as we talked about earlier, internal and external balanced engines.
Correct.
So your damper or your balancer back then. So every single engine, everything that runs that is in an ignited fueled thing has torsional vibration, and that's what the damper removes. The balancing your engine, blueprinting the whole nine, that does not ever remove torsional vibration.
Okay.
So your engine always will have that. So the damper is the only way to remove it, and you'll get these guys. Again, I hate to pick on Subaru guys, but it's that there happen to be like the biggest consumer of the power pulley, just an aluminum pulley that has no damping abilities whatsoever.
Okay.
And hey, you may not clap out your engine today or tomorrow, but guess what? You're wearing your bearings, you're wearing your oil drive, and if you've ever owned an older vehicle and you just feel it vibrating,
Yeah.
it's so your torsional vibration is doing the same thing. It's just going everywhere. It radiates everywhere. So your valve train, your fueling system, everything is going to be affected by that. So
Premature wear, eventually.
exactly, yep. So one of the things, like our damper has like side benefits, so it makes everything run smoother. So I try to explain it as this because so when your engine's running, it's very violent, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just it's
A
not a
bunch of
violent
explosions inside of a
way.
block, right?
Yeah, so it's an extremely violent act, right? You have explosions happening and metal twisting and things rotating. So your engine is kind of like fighting itself, and from even with a stock damper. So the way I explain it is our damper helps to smooth it out, so it's not as extreme. It's not trying to eat itself up and everything.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is it actually frees up the lost horsepower and torque that the engine has.
Okay.
So you actually gain horsepower and torque from it. And it's not that it's adding it, it's just freeing up the lost horsepower and torque that the engine is suffering from. But when you say, excuse me, when you say add growing up, I always remember you see, oh, you add this cold air intake and you get 15 horsepower. Well, we all know that's not true.
Oh crap! Right.
But I mean, I still add them. I still add them because I'm going to gain horsepower. It's just like you think about it.
Right.
But so when you're adding these other products, and your engine's fighting itself, well, now you're making it fight even harder, and your stack damper is fighting even harder now to try to keep up because it can't keep up because it's like you said earlier, it's not up to that task anymore. It's just not doing it. So with a fluid damper, it's going to help everything better. So not only is your engine going to run better, smoother, everything's going to last longer, but you're going to get those added benefits from the other products you added as well. Because now, hey, maybe you will see that 15 horse out of that air intake, But it's little things like that, like the little side benefits that I was trying to say, like if you have a manual transmission, it goes right down the drive line. You'll feel it in the gearbox and the shifter.
Right, that's a good one.
You'll turn on the shifter and you feel it. I had a car that had a terrible vibration, and you could feel it in the shifter. And every time you just rest your hand on it, and you're shifting gears, you could feel it. So it's one of those things that it helps go. It helps with that stuff. A little side note, funny story about that. So, we had a guy. It was a Volkswagen Golf, I believe.
Okay.
Or is it a Golf R or something? I can't remember exactly. And he called up. He put our damper on. He had all these crazy modifications done to this thing, and he's like yelling. He's like mad. He's like all fired up and riled up about it. And I'm like, I what's wrong? And he's like explaining. He's like, I put the damper on, and now my engine is shifting at a different point, and he's like, it's dropping down, and I can't feel exactly where the RPMs and everything are. And I'm like, well, you look at your tachometer and everything. And he's like, I stalled my car, and basically, after it was all said and done, it came down to he was out on a date with a girl, and he couldn't drive his car because he was being embarrassed because he had couldn't get it into gear going. Because he couldn't get the clutch and fuel right. So it was like something like that. And I was like, so are we good? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And you ever hang up after a phone call and you're just like, did that just happen?
Right.
You walk away for a minute because you're like, so I'm not exactly sure what just happened here, but...
Right. Can I tell you what it sounds like to me? What it sounds like to me is somebody who's been in a horrible relationship for a long time, but then they get into a good relationship and don't know what good is, and now good feels bad because all this time they've been in something bad and now they're accustomed to it. So it sounds like to me you put the balancer on, and now that you don't feel all this chaos, your sense of where your car used to be when you felt those things aren't there anymore because it's more smoothed out and absorbed. So now you're getting used to feeling peace and harmony.
Yeah, that is a great analogy. I may have to use that. I may have to take that from you and
Go
use that.
ahead.
But yes. So like, I mean, we've heard like tons of stories, like diesel guys with older diesel trucks. They throw the damper on and they're like, "Holy cow! Like, is this like this is I can't believe this."
Right.
So like just things like that, and it's like those like stories are just great to hear, and we hear them all the time. And people are like, I had your competitor's damper, and it didn't do what I was hoping, so I'm hoping to switch to yours and try it out, and I'm hoping it's going to do what I want,
Okay.
and you hate that they had to buy somebody else's damper or another product only to come around to one that is going to work or
Right.
you hope is going to fix what they're looking for it to fix, but because then you're spending all that extra money and everything, so it's like,
True.
hey, I hope and like you did a lot of research and everything on them, so like you're well informed about it and you made your decision based on that, and like, that's like the best thing you could ask for, because now you didn't go spend, we'll say, $500
Right.
on one only to, man, now I gotta spend X amount of dollars to have this rebuilt, or it wasn't what I wanted, so now I gotta do it again, because
Right.
these vehicles, these cars, they're an investment, and like I have the toys I like to play around too, and I want to have the best thing on it for it to protect it,
True.
because then I could spend more money on other, doing other things with it.
Correct. So let me ask you this: as we're coming down here, I'm going to ask you this because this is going to be an important part, and I hope a lot of people are listening because I'm going to post the clips on Instagram, put it on the YouTube. How do you, if I bring somebody to you that has the normal ABC, like I'm going to get intake, header, and exhaust, like that's the first thing I'm getting when I get this Civic or I get this Mazda. How do you explain to them, don't do that yet, do this instead, and then do that? How would you explain to them to make them understand that this is the better investment first and then to get into these other things? Or to at least
So,
incorporate this as you're incorporating everything else?
right. So I guess the best way to explain it is, think of your engine like your foundation of your house, right? You got to have a good solid foundation. And then once you have a good foundation, then you can put that porch on, put a pool, like you can start to, do them upgrades, rebuild your kitchen, like things like that. So again, it's not the coolest part. It's not a turbo. It's not, fancy valve covers or big ignition or, injectors and you pop the hood, ooh and ah. It's not.
Right.
But it's one of the most important parts of the vehicle. Without that, you're gonna, you could have devastating effects. And, if you go and say you have a Honda K series, and that's one of the hottest engines. You
It
can
is.
buy them cheap and build them cheap, and you can get gobs of power out of them.
Right.
But if you're, and you have that stock bottom end, and you're just running that factory damper, but you're shoving tons of fuel and air into this thing, it's not going to last as long as you had hoped or thought.
Right.
And so, a good damper is almost a must at any point in that equation. But before you start getting into that, because I've done it myself, where I'm just going to buy this one part, and then it snowballs into, now I'm going crazy, and guess what? I'm going to be having big smiles and chirping and everything, but without that good foundation, you're kind of just throwing your money away in a sense, because when it's done, when it blows up or it's worn out, and then you got to do a rebuild and everything, and you're still no further ahead. So there's really never, I don't want to say there's never a bad time to install the damper,
Right.
but the earlier the better.
Okay. There you go, Nick. That was excellent. That was excellent. And I hope, listen, I hope you all out there are listening to this information. Like Nick said plenty of times, and I've said it's not the prettiest part to install, but I do, and I did find that it is a very key part. And me, myself, I've put thousands of dollars, and you all have seen my build. There's thousands of dollars in the motor, from titanium to forged to everything that's been done, not to mention all the custom parts and custom bolts and everything. But you have to look at it like an investment. Do you want to keep spending money? Because a lot of you are not going to buy this part, and then you're going to find yourself continuing to replace parts, and you're going to think that it's just a bad build, when in fact it was a bad move on your part not to install something to cancel out something that was probably damaging your engine from the beginning. So while you're thinking another part is just prematurely failing over time, no, it's being overly abused over time because you haven't installed the correct parts in order to protect your investment. And I think, Nick, you laid it out perfectly. And I just hope people hear this more. And I'm trying to get people to understand the buys that are not glamorous are the ones that are most important. Just like anything that you see that's good and sweet for you likely isn't good for you. The thing that you don't like to taste or eat more than time, like drink water over soda, water's a lot better for you. And here, Fluid Dampener has developed a product that I think assists us with our builds, assists us with our engine, assists us with performance. And I think it's a phenomenal product, and I myself have invested into it. And Nick, I really thank you and Fluid Dampener for coming on Just Build It for sure.
Well,
So tell the
thank you.
people
I
where they can reach
appreciate
you,
your
and they can come see more information, because I heard you say something about you do information. So I caught an Instagram one time live, and I think you were informing people. So tell people where they can come get information about Fluid Dampener and purchase Fluid Dampener.
Okay, so our website is fluidampr.com, and we're on all the major social medias. It's Fluid Damper, FLUIDAMPR. So there's and I think it's like the original Fluid Damper was the one part, but so that's you'll find us on all the socials. If we have time and everything, I do like to try to jump on a live and just get that Q&A going, and then to purchase any major retailer, race parts store, you can find them online. We don't sell direct. We like to support our dealers. So we have dealers and distributors all over the world. So it doesn't matter where you are. There's one to be able to get to you. On our website, there is like a dealer tracker or a dealer locator on there, but you can always give us a call or shoot us an email if you're in a specific area, or any of the questions or anything. We're always happy to help, happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that, man. So listen, y'all know what I say, just build it, but build it smart. And until next time, we'll see you all again. Thanks, Nick and Fluid Dampener, for coming on again, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in and watching another video here at Wolfpack Performance. Check out some of my other content on Formula One issues, our topics, and our DIY products on how to customize your vehicle. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.